everyone. Welcome to Stream Queens, the conversation about the movies and TV shows you can stream or skip this week. I'm Crossan.
And I'm Leanne Aguilera. Last week, we took a step back to focus on the movies, documentaries, and TV shows that shine a light on what the Black Lives Matter movement is all about.
Now, this week, we'd like to continue moving that conversation forward by focusing on how Hollywood has been reacting and can better support the Black Lives Matter movement going forward. And we're so grateful to have our friend, former colleague, and Variety's Angelique Jackson joining us right now. Angelique, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
So happy to be back and to really be talking about something that I know we all find to be very important. So thanks for having me.
Exactly. I know this is kind of a conversation that might seem small scale in the scheme of things, but I think it's important to talk about how Hollywood has reacted so far and how they can really make a change going forward, because it is a bit of a trend right now, but we have to kind of make sure that it's not going to remain a trend. It's going to be something that is actually implemented going forward.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, right now we have a lot of statements. We have a lot of money being shown in support of diversity and inclusion. And honestly, it should be said that a lot of the industry has already put forth efforts before this time to create more diversity and inclusion. But I think the point that we're all at now is really understanding that we need to do more. There's more work that needs to be done. The systemic racism in the industry is a legacy part of the industry. We see it each year when we have Oscars So White, when there's only one of the acting nominees of 20 that is a Black woman. So it kind of stands to show now that more has to be done, and it's just a question of exactly what will be done moving forward.
Angelique, you had mentioned that we are seeing those statements of support. We are seeing companies pledging that they are going to be putting their money where their mouth is. Of these acts that we've seen so far, is there any that really stands out to you?
Well, this isn't even a company. This is more of just the support of an actor. So I know John Boyega is a favorite around here, but his very strong statements at the protests in London, yes, your boy, Ash, his very strong and emotional statements at the protests in London, I think rang true for a lot of people. The fear that he was not going to be able to work again because he spoke up about Black Lives Matter is a real fear that I think a lot of people in the industry have had, and not just fear of talking about Black Lives Matter, but fear of talking about what goes on these sets, what goes on. You know, look at Gabrielle Union stepping forward in her discussions with America's Got Talent. You look at Amber Riley, who spoke about her experiences, and Samantha Ware spoke about their experiences working on the set of Glee. There's a lot of different conversations that have started to roll out, and the support that we are seeing of these actors. For example, John Boyega, like I said, you have Jordan Peele, Matthew Cherry, Olivia Wilde, all saying, honey, we have your back. Don't worry about it. We will be supporting you. We have to ask our white allies, our non-Black allies, to make sure that they are, demanding that we see more Black people in the rooms where these decisions are made. We need to see more Black executives. We need to see more Black producers. Even, thinking of Back to the Help, you have Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer, who became good friends after the film. And just a few years ago, Octavia revealed that Jessica helped her get equal pay parity between the two of them for a movie they were going to be working on. This was after Octavia Spencer won her Oscar, that she still was not being offered the same amount of money as her white female counterpart. And that's what we have to be doing. We have to be talking to each other, having these hard conversations, and really holding each other up, because that's the only way things are going to get done. You have to use your power to support the Black people who are speaking up.
Absolutely. And, we've seen protesting happening in front of the Academy over these last few days, and David Oyelowo speaking up and saying that Selma, didn't get the, Academy members saying that they wouldn't vote for the film because they were, quote, stirring surrounding the film. So, it's interesting because the Oscar So White campaign started back in 2015, and now we go to this past Oscars, and Danny Fernandez called this out on Twitter, and I just want to point it out that a lot of us were talking about the fact that there weren't any ladies in the directing category, but not a lot of people were talking about how many Black actresses were nominated, and Scarlett Johansson being nominated twice.
Exactly. It kind of is a thing with the news cycle where people just kind of latch onto one thing. And there's larger problems with diversity across the industry. But I also appreciate what you said about the Academy. The Academy professed to make their membership more diverse in terms of women and in terms of people of color. And they have since, reached their goal to some extent in multiplying the number of people of color, doubling the people of color that are a part of the Academy, but it's still so far and above largely white. I mean, over 70% white still. And the average age of an Academy member is around 50 to 60. So when you have the numbers being like that, still, you're going to run up to the same problems that we've been dealing with since 2015. I think it's kind of important to keep that perspective as well as to why the change has been so slow. We still see primarily white executives that are at the head of all of the major studios. If that's happening, then only certain movies are going to get made and only certain movies are going to be considered in consideration for these top awards. Same goes for the amount of money that's put behind the awards campaigns for them. So when you have, hundreds of thousands of dollars being put behind The Irishman for Netflix, for example, and not as much attention being put behind Eddie Murphy and Dolomite Is My Name, which one is going to end up with more awards?
And it's interesting, Angelique, that you brought up The Help. I didn't know that little behind the scenes story that you had, but I was very intrigued to see that The Help was trending on Netflix as one of their top movies being streamed right now. What were your thoughts on seeing that The Help is the movie that a lot of people were gravitating towards this last weekend?
So in the teensy tiniest defense, the Help was actually brand new on Netflix early this month. So that did play a role to some extent, you can imagine, in why it is trending so big. But when you have Bryce Dallas Howard, who's one of the stars of The Help, going on social media saying, hey, everybody, we know we said educate yourselves. This is not exactly what we meant. Here are some other Black films and films about the Black experience that you should be watching, promoting films like Selma and 13th and Malcolm X. And, yes, it is hard to watch a lot of these stories. It's particularly hard to watch a lot of these stories as a Black person because you are dealing with the world every day. But education is the only way that we move past any of this. It's the only way that we move forward. History teachers will always say it to you that, you can't, if you don't learn from history, it'll repeat itself. They'll say things like that. It seems kind of like schmaltzy, but it's true. And that is Hollywood's greatest power. Hollywood's greatest power is to change the narrative by making sure that the programming is educational, by making sure the images of Black men that we see are these positive images, not always as gangsters or criminals. The disproportionate amount of Black criminals that you see in media is a big part of the further criminalization of Black men. So getting to really understand what's going on and really see these positive Black images is also really important, while we also have to do the hard work of watching the really terrible things that people that look like me, quite frankly, have experienced.
When you see people saying, hire Black directors, hire Black writers, make the superhero Black, and a lot of times in the comments, you see, hire the best person for the job. I'm just curious what your opinion is on this or what your response is, because it's a conversation that we've had before as well.
It's a really complicated issue because, yes, you do want to hire the best person for the job, but the only way to hire the best person for the job is to look at the full pool of people available for the job. And what happens a lot in these rooms is that, okay, this director is going to go to this DP and ask, what's your list of DPs that you know? And if that list is all white people, those are the only people who are going to be considered for the job. That actually was the case with J.J. Abrams and Victoria Mahoney, who was the second unit director on The Rise of Skywalker.
She was.
Yes, he went to Ava DuVernay, amongst others, and asked for other names. He knew his limitation in the scope of people that he knew, and was like, I want to bring in new voices. So in going to Ava then recommended Vic, and Vic became the first Black woman to be a director on a Star Wars film. And in general, that's what we have to be doing. Yes, your circle may only be comprised of a certain number of people that have the same socioeconomic background or look like you, but to expand around that, the only way to do that is to ask people for a broader list, ask people for who they know. And then when they get those jobs, you have to give them the same amount of support that they have behind, these white men. Even last year, Greta Gerwig was talking about how she wanted to shoot on film. She had like a distinct plan for what she wanted to do. And she wanted to do it because, Tarantino was getting that same amount of film. And it got a ton of backlash because people were like, oh my God, what has Greta done to deserve the same respect as Tarantino? why does it have to be what has she done? Because you have to look at the fact that she didn't have the same number of opportunities as a white woman. And then think about it in terms of a Black woman, how further repressed those opportunities have been. So it can't even be judged on that same scale of, oh, this is her first movie, so why should we give her the time of day or give her the same level of respect? You just kind of have to do it. So it's an interesting concept, but yeah, you have to put the money not just behind, or you can't just hire the best person for the job. You have to give them the money and the resources and the support that they need to do a good job, and then the publicity and the consideration behind it for it to really take off.
Well, Angelique, we are so thrilled to have you on Stream Queens. So I've got to ask you, what are you binging right now? What are you saying is the number one thing that fans should be taking a look at right now? What's making you happy?
So something that I am binging right now is I'm binging Dear White People, the series. I know a lot of people have either watched the series or watched the movie. I am definitely jumping into the series because I'll be honest, I hadn't dived in before, and Justin Simien is such a genius that we have to give him more time. I am also, I'm watching the whole Spike Lee collection. You know, there's a variation of different Spike Lee films that you can find out there, everything from Malcolm X to upcoming, he has Five Bloods on Netflix. So Spike Lee always knows what's going on in the world and seems to almost have like a prescient nature about him. He always seems to know what's going to happen before it happens because he has his finger on the pulse.
You've seen Five Bloods, right?
I have.
Okay. Give me your quickie review.
Five Bloods is just another one of Spike Lee's classics. After BlacKkKlansman came out just a couple of years ago, I think a lot of younger people were really reintroduced to what is the magic of Spike Lee. The fact that he has his full finger on the pulse of Black culture, but also the way he teaches us about history, because he feels it's a personal responsibility as an artist and as a Black artist to give people a history lesson and fill in those blanks that you're not getting in school. And for Five Bloods, it's specific to the Black veteran experience, where these are men who went and fought for their country, and they fought for rights that they didn't have when they left and that they still didn't have when they came back. It talks about Black mental health. It is, while it's a war film and it's this deep introspection into that internal war, it does also have its lighthearted moments and, a little bit of comedy in there. He kind of always finds a way to get all of those different elements into one film, but most importantly, it's that history lesson. He is talking about the exact issues that we are discussing today through the Black Lives Matter movement, and it really is a perfect companion to what's going on right now, and also a great entry point into Spike Lee's films. So I could not recommend it more.
It's when you mentioned BlacKkKlansman, when I watched that movie, I thought it was so excellent. And I was like, there's no way this is not a true story. And it is. It's wild.
That is the craziest part. And not just the fact that it's a true story that, people have been trying to figure out a way to tell for, some time, but also the fact that, of course, the tragedy in Charlottesville happened when he was locking picture on the film. So the fact that it was able to speak so directly to some of the earlier moments of this Black Lives Matter movement is so, it's almost like divine timing. It's so interesting to see, and also so important to see these images on screen. Like I said before, that these images are so important because they're going to teach us something and hopefully give us those tools that we need to be able to have these really difficult conversations that I know we're all having right now.
Once again, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on Stream Queens. It's always such a delight whenever we do get to cross paths again. So to have you here and talking about all this has just been so insightful and so wonderful. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you guys so much for having me, and for, this is a part of it. It's we have to work together as much as we can, and I love that you guys wanted to bring me in. So thank you.